You are listening to the CAD podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The CAD podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the CAD podcast with Jim and Rocco. Ooh, we got a cowbell today. Tony brought a special cowbell. We got a guest who brought a cowbell for us. That's awesome. So I am Jim Coppinger, and with me, as always, is my partner.
Good morning, Rocco Parisi.
Good morning, Rocco Parisi. We have a special guest with us today. We have Mr. Tony Gaffney, who has been kind enough to agree to sit and chat with us today. Tony's a veteran CAD consultant and a designer and an instructor. Been doing this stuff for many, many decades, and he's currently teaching at he's the AutoCAD and AutoCAD Civil 3D instructor at Workforce Development and Community Partnerships for the County College of Morris, along with a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm going to let him tell you about. How you doing this morning, Tony?
Doing all right, Jim. Good to hear you. Good to talk to you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it definitely has.
You just said a scary word. You said decades, and I realized, oh my God, it has been decades.
Listen, you're still younger than me, man. Don't sweat it.
I don't know. I don't know if I feel that way. But Rocco can attest to it. I go way back with Rocco.
Early 2000s.
Oh my God, Rocco! It's been over 2 decades. It's crazy.
It is something, huh? Time goes really, really quick. So, Tony, why don't you feed people a little bit about your background? What did you get into the CAD world, and what have you been doing for these decades we're discussing?
Well, back in the dinosaur days we just talked about, starting to get into AutoCAD. I don't know. I just gravitated to it right away. I guess I'm a bit of a computer nerd, and I jumped all over it. And I took, way back in the early days, I took pretty much an intensive program to learn it inside and out. And right from the get-go, I realized that when I started working that I knew more about the software than pretty much, my employers did. So then I realized, okay, and immediately I became the go-to guy. Hey, that guy, he knows, he got a problem, go ask him. You're trying to figure something out, go ask him. So I realized, okay, there's a niche here. So I started in training right away too, because I realized I always tell my students this too, and you guys can attest to it. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So one of the reasons I started training right away is to keep knowledge going. And then I hooked up with Pinnacle Consulting, and again, it's been decades. And that's been great because, it's a wide variety of clients, a lot of environmental, definitely civil, which is my bent, but we have architectural and structural. And so you get exposed to a lot of different things, which is great because, working in one discipline, you learn to use the software, you learn tools that you can apply to other disciplines. And you really get an overview of what you're capable of, what the software can do, and developing tools, and you add that to your tool set. You add it to your instruction. When I'm teaching, I try to bring in real world situations. Try to give the students look, this is what you're going to see when you get out there. So something that you can relate to in a real world environment.
Yeah. That's funny. It always makes me laugh. I mean, every time I have this conversation, folks like you, you and I, who kind of move into the more advanced section, is where we all started the same way, right? It all started with, hey, I sat down in front of a system and it just clicked for me, and I liked it. And the next thing you know, I'm that go-to guy, and I've just been doing it ever since. It's crazy. Yeah. I've never met anybody who was like, oh, well, I decided that I wanted to do this, and this it doesn't work like that in this world.
No, I guess it kind of decides for you.
It does, right? It chooses you. So, Cool. That's awesome, man. So, we really appreciate your being here today. Like I said, folks, I've actually been in Tony's classes in the past, and we worked together in the past, and I'm telling you, you got a great guest here today. He's one of the most talented and skilled drafter designers out there. So, and what we're going to be talking with Tony about today, we're going to be talking about contract CAD drafting, right? Where it works and where it doesn't, because this is an area that Tony has been working in for a while. I'll stop saying decades so we don't feel bad, Tony. So All right, so yeah, so we're talking about contract drafting in the CAD world, right? Which is, basically it's the act of hiring outside consultants to handle your drafting needs, right? Whether it's overflow work or, as a lot of people are doing today, with the current environment, right? Pulling on a full-time consultant that you can work with to handle all of your CAD needs. This has actually been a really controversial issue over the last few decades. I mean, really since, CAD first took over the design world, and Tony and I got into this stuff. And there are two schools of thought about contracting out your CAD work. There are some folks who absolutely love it, and they see, the ability to add as many hands as you might need to a project, right? Without needing to go out and hire full-time support, large staffs, benefits, paydays, all of that, that you might not always need, right? You only need this, to hit limited time runs when you got a big project pushing. They see that as a big, big benefit. And there are other people who are very resistant, or have been in the past very resistant to the idea of losing control, so to speak, of their design staff, right? And they don't want people who may or may not understand their specific CAD standards and design processes working on their files. And that's why we've asked Tony to be here today, right? He's got a lot of experience in working as a CAD contractor. And he's seen, both the positives and the negatives of this. So I think he can give us a pretty fair assessment of both sides. So Tony, let's start with the positive side of this, right? What are the biggest benefits that your clients, get from using you guys as a CAD consultant? And do they know that up front, or do you need to convince them that there are benefits to this?
No, some know it up front because they know us. A lot of times what you'll have is we'll have a client, and this might answer one of your questions later on about how do we get found out. But we'll have a client, and then someone in that office moves to another firm, and they get to the other firm and they go, the CAD situation over here is kind of lacking. I know these guys, can I bring them in? So in that situation, they know what they're getting. Other times, no, they don't know what they're getting, and we can't really prove to them until we get in there. Sometimes it's just like, guys, just give us a day. Let us come in for a day, and then you will see what we can do and how we can help you out. And that leads to probably the biggest positive to work on, stay on the positive part, is productivity. Because we understand the environment, we understand the client, we understand the program. First off, being experts at it and all that, so we can come in and we can be productive right away. Right away, they see results. You'll have an engineer. They give you a little assignment. Can you do this? Or Jim, even something as red lines. Here's a bunch of red lines, and then you just bang it out and you give it right back to them. And when they see that there's very little revisions, then the light bulb goes off, and then they realize, can you be here next week? So that's kind of how it unfolds. But it really, you make a good point. It's hard to convince, I guess use the word convince, and so they have to see it like anything else. They won't believe it till they see it, because sometimes they've used some outside sources that were not good. Maybe it's like a one-off guy working out of his basement, although we're all working out of our basements now.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Maybe they've had some bad experiences, but once we get in there and we show them, look, this can work, then then you end up getting a relationship with these clients, and they call you when they need you, and if things get slow, then you back off. But you want them to know that you are a resource. We are here for you whenever you need us. We can come in, jump in, get to work, get the work done, and then we'll jump out when you don't need us. We're like a context-sensitive ribbon tab.
Nice analogy, right? They just click on you, and everything you need is right there.
Right. And then when you're done, we go away, and there's no, for us, there's, you mentioned it, there's no overhead. You don't have to worry about hiring. You don't have to worry about, health insurance and things like that. We just come in, hired gun, as they say.
And that works. And I said, you think, the cost savings, I think, related here is always going to be a real big plus for anybody who decides to go with CAD drafting services. Yeah, like you pointed out, right? You don't need to keep a full-time staff, right? You don't have to give them paid holidays and benefits. You just contract out that work as needed, right? And a lot of times, actually, I've seen and worked with contractors where they can just pass the cost directly along to their client, right? The architect, the engineer can pass it along to the owner of the project.
Sure.
You know, but I think that the fear of this, though, it's still present in the industry. And I think it's not completely unfounded, right? Like we said earlier, I'm an old man. I've been working in this industry for 3 decades, at least. And I remember when CAD first hit mainstream, right? You know, CAD drafting services were all the rage at first, right? You know, because for a while, you know, CAD systems were still really new. They were really expensive, right? Guys like you and I were just figuring out the nuts and bolts, and it required extensive hardware investments and a lot of training for the staff. And for a lot of design firms, right, just contracting things out seemed like a better business choice. And I think that worked really well for a decade or so, but I think that 2 things really happened. You know, first, you know, the hardware and the software prices as CAD and you know, PCs came into their maturity, the prices related to all of this dropped dramatically, right? And it made, you know, in-house use of you know, CAD staff much more feasible and much more cost effective. So I think that impacted it. But I think secondly, and probably more importantly to most people's minds, greed. Greed really entered this picture, right? There were a lot of those early drafting services who just started passing their work overseas to massive CAD centers, right? You know, kind of like they do the phone centers now for tech support that we all hate. You know, and they did the same thing in the CAD world.
It's still going on.
Yeah, it's awful, right? I know they're still out there, but you know, I think this is what really hurt this industry. You know, those people are underpaid, they're poorly trained, you know, and I think that there was a real big pushback in the CAD and design world because, you know, the product that they were getting back from these, you know, what I call digital sweatshops was really substandard, right? And they wound up actually spending twice as much time fixing the garbage drawings they got back as they would have just doing the work in-house. You know, and I don't think that, you know, and you're absolutely right, Tony, it's still there, but I don't think that these are as prevalent as they used to be. You know, I think a lot of those places have died out, unless you tell me otherwise. You're the expert here. You know, but I think that there are, you know, there's a leftover fear about using a drafting service like Pinnacle, right, which is an entirely different beast. You guys are amazing. You know, I've worked with you guys a lot in the past. So, you know, so Tony, what then, you know, looking at that, right, there is a negative here. What are the big negatives that your clients see in working with, you know, contract CAD guys like you? And are those concerns real?
What you said is legit. They're real. And I can think of a couple of situations currently where things are being sent overseas, for lack of a better term. And you make a very good point about the quality, let's say that. I think the negative part of it is in the upper, you know, the people making the decisions. This is where I find is the most resistance. The people, you know, the bean counters, as we like to call them, they will look at, you know, the spreadsheet and they'll see this drafting service and they'll immediately, why can't we do that in-house? This is an expense and we're not going to use this expense. We're not going to use this service. The biggest thing is trying to explain and to show them how it's cost effective, how we can, you know, quantify the service that we provide. And that's always the hardest issue. And that's the negative side of it is sometimes you get people who just do not buy into it. And unfortunately, the people who don't buy into it are usually the ones writing the check. The end users, they buy into it. You know, when you're working with the staff, they're, you know, they see what we can do. They're all into it. Another negative side of it is sometimes you might have a situation where, well, this guy's going to come in and take my job. And that's exactly nothing like the case. We do not come in to do any of that. We're coming in to help out. So you might get into an environment in a certain office that might be somewhat, you know, a little toxic with the office environment, and you might end up ruffling some feathers. So that sometimes could be a negative thing that happens. But a lot of that, Jim, is just people's work attitude, I guess you could say. It's just, well, come on, let's look at the big picture. What are we trying to do here? We're not coming in to overtake your department. We're coming in to help out. And the places that it does work, they see that, and then we can develop the relationship, and then we can, you know, can not just do straight up drafting and get the production work done, but then this will lead to, you know, CAD customizations and consulting and configurations and standards, which is always a big deal because a lot of these places, not to say they don't have standards, but they can always use a little bit of work. But if you get into a situation where people don't understand that, now you're into that negative thing you're talking about, and now it's a roadblock. It doesn't benefit anybody. Having that negative attitude on any level what are we doing? We're trying to get work done here, and
Counterproductive.
Oh, it's totally counterproductive. Thank you, Rocco.
Absolutely. Yeah. You wind up, like you said, at the end of the day, you guys are a backstop, right? You always need in-house staff. That's not going to go away. And being afraid of someone who's just there to help take the load off. And I think your point's a really valid one, Tony, that, the people who are doing the work, who are actually handling the projects, they see the massive benefit that you bring to the table. It's the accountant 9 times removed in the corporate office who has no idea what actually goes into a project. He's just looking at numbers saying, well, there's an additional cost. Well, no, there's a huge savings and benefit that goes along with that. So.
Right. And listen, to their credit, I don't know what they're looking at. Who knows what the company's, books are. So they're seeing a side of it that obviously I don't see. I can only speak to my perspective. But, to my perspective, I'll come to a client and, the end user, oh my God, you're here today. Can you help me with this? My computer's doing this. My AutoCAD's getting goofy. And then the other side of it is like, okay, well, no, don't come in until we tell you, because, we have a budget issue or something like that. So I think the key, Jim, is being able we got to figure out a way to quantify the service that we provide so that the people who are, balancing the spreadsheets will see that as a number, but it's a number that backs itself up.
You got to show them the return on investment there.
Yeah, exactly. That's a cost, but we are benefiting from it on the back end.
All right, cool. All right, so Rocco, we'll bring you into this discussion so you're not falling asleep back there. So when you're talking with clients at Zentech, right? Does the concept of drafting services, do people ask us about that a lot? I know you've had some conversations. I don't know how many. And it's a service idea that we have toyed with offering, but we've never actually pulled the trigger. I mean, for us, why not? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think it depends really depends on the size of the firm. If a small to a medium-sized firm is more willing to look at a situation like this and bring someone like Pinnacle into the mix. Larger firms, it's just you got to go through so many layers, of approvals, and you got to have all kinds of insurance and and this and that. So that's my experience. But where in those small to medium sized firms where you bring in a firm like Tony's, it can certainly be a huge benefit. But you also got to present it right to the staff, right? I mean, you're not looking like to replace them, right? You're just looking to bring in some additional help because Tony and I were talking before we started recording this today, right? Where's business at today? And it's certainly up and down. There are weeks where you're crazy busy and then weeks where it's totally slow. So, a firm like Tony's, like Pinnacle can certainly help to bridge that gap when you're not ready to hire or when you need that incremental help here every now and then. So, as far as us, Zentech and bring somebody on, I mean, it's or bringing on those services directly. It is something that we've certainly looked at, but it's, you got to be careful, right? You can only be good at so many things, and you got to look at your costs and same with us. We have payroll expenses and health insurance expenses and everything else, and so. How many, we got to look at how many things can we be good at.
Exactly. And who can do it when there are guys out there like Tony and Pinnacle who just specialize in doing that. So why do we want to fight with them? So no worries. Yeah, like you said, I mean, like I said, for a lot of, I think things are changing a little bit because, for a long time, right, there were some folks, like we've been saying, who were resistant to this idea, right, because whether it's from expense or from loss of control over their files. I think there were a lot of managers who wanted that in-person ability so they could look over people's shoulders and see what they were doing. But honestly, I think, with the current health concerns out here, right, and with so many people who have been forced to go entirely digital and remote, I think that a lot of those people are seeing that, the modern technology gives them, great levels of, tracking and communication and control. And I think there's a big shift in attitude towards this thing, not just even in the short term, but I think long term. I think people are going to change the way that they work entirely. So Tony, what have you guys seen as a result of COVID impacting on the design world? I mean, you have more conversations with clients who are looking to get, to keep the overhead down, but still have, work going on.
Oh yeah, Rock and I were talking about this a little bit earlier too. This environment is actually conducive to this kind of work because everything's remote, so the communication is there. So that's not an issue. You can keep, costs down by helping, an outside source come in and help you out. I really, work-wise, it was sporadic at first, but I think once everybody kind of settled into the environment and figured out how to work remotely, it's picked back up again, and it's been steady. So it's definitely something that can be done remotely. It's this environment is not, totally conducive to it. Actually, I have a client I haven't heard from in years. They just showed up. They had a project and they're like, hey, come on back and help us out.
That's it. And I do think that's the case. I think you're going to see more and more that, people are going to become more, now that they're comfortable with the technology, it's not a new technology they have to understand. They've kind of been forced to make that change where, we've lived for a while now, right? And they know that, the remote secure process and communication is very easy. And I think it'll be a definite plus, for you guys on the consulting side there. So,
yeah. And just one thing also, obviously we're talking about it, but a big part of this is really setting up relationships. Some of our clients, let's go back to that decades word again. We've had clients for decades. They know they're totally happy with having us come in. Their in-house staff might be reduced because they know, all right, you guys come in and this way we can kind of reduce our in-house staff because you guys are going to help us out with the load. And now we don't have to, have a larger staff that might be not as skilled. We know you guys can come in and take over the overhead. And this goes on for years. And like I said, some clients, they go away and they come back, things ramp up, they get a project. So a lot of this contract drafting is really, it's like I said earlier, it's a resource, and you end up having a relationship with your clients, and when everything's running smoothly, it's all about, hey, again, we're here to help, and we come in and do what you need us to do, and it's nothing but a boon on both sides. You help us out or we help you out, and when you don't need our service, okay, that's fine. We got to go someplace else most likely. So
all right, so I think we're going to take a quick break here to listen to today's sponsor, and then when we get back, Tony's going to kind of walk us through the best processes for working with a CAD drafting consultant. All right, folks, we'll be back in just a few minutes with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. Nice, love the cowbell. All right, everybody. Today's episode of the Cattle Call Podcast is brought to you by ZenTech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. We're bringing ourselves to you. Aren't we nice? So we wanted to talk to you guys today about some of the things that we offer at ZenTech Consultants. In particular, we wanted to talk to you today about our offerings around developing and upgrading your CAD standards. We are here to help you guys with all of your CAD standard needs, from ongoing drafting and design support to block and library development, full CAD standards development, right, CAD version upgrades, really whatever it is that you guys need when it comes to developing, implementing, and tweaking your current CAD standards. Or like I said, if you don't have any yet, we can help you build them from scratch. So Rocco, why don't you tell all the good folks how they can reach out to us and start that conversation?
Yeah, there's a lot of information, people, on our website, zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK consultants.net. Or you can give us a call, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
Ooh, nice. CAD standards from ZenTech Consultants. You're listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call podcast. And today, there's my cowbell. Tony was very nice. Bring the cowbell for me. I may have to find a way to steal that from him. I like the cowbell.
Yeah, I think you have to add it in.
There you go. It's perfect. So we're talking with Tony Gaffney from Pinnacle Consulting, and we're talking about working with CAD drafting consultants, right? And I want to start this second segment by talking about how to effectively work with a drafting service like Pinnacle. So Tony, let's start with, we talked a little bit about this in the first segment, but, where do you find your clients, and how do they find you, right? And where do folks go, and what process do our listeners use, right, that you'd recommend for finding the right drafting service for their specific needs?
Okay, well, majority, surprising enough, is word of mouth. And we mentioned this earlier in the first half that, we've had clients for years, decades, and especially we have a lot of environmental clients, and I'll use them as an example. They're a little incestuous. Guys move from one firm to another, and they'll get to the new firm and look at the CAD, situation and go, oh, it's a little lacking. Hey, when I was at this other place, we used this service. Let me give these guys a call. They know what they're doing. Can I bring them in? And it's simple. Sometimes as simple as that. That's really, word of mouth is how it happens. Otherwise, the internet, of course we have, pinnacad.com. So that's a situation there. And, whether someone moves to another firm or not, a client might be talking to one of their subcontractors, and they could be complaining about their CAD department or getting work done. They go, hey, you know what? We have this service, you might want to give these guys a call. That happens often. So it's kind of, spreads itself out that way. Just being out there and networking is really pretty much how it gets done. And then as we spoke before, once we get in there and they can see what we can do, most clients are like, oh, okay, this is going to work. And the big part of it for us is like, there's no real overhead as far as, training is concerned. We understand a lot of the, what the industry is looking for. If I, I'm more of a civil guy, but if I have to go to an architectural client, I'm not lost. I know what they're looking for. We know what it is. We know what the drawings are supposed to look like. We know what their product is. We know where they're headed. And that for them means there's very little training overhead. The biggest for us is like, okay, where are your files?
Show us where it is and what are your basic output standards, and we can work from there.
Yep. And then your favorite, Jim, where are your CAD standards? Do you have a template? And that leads to a whole nother world that, that we can go off on that for decades. And then it's good because then you start, you work with the staff that's there, and you get to work with them and get to know them, and they can realize that they can lean on us to help solve their problems. And, once they see that we're problem solvers, and now it kind of just is beneficial. The only thing is we got to find a way to quantify that so that people balancing the spreadsheets up above us will see that. And that's the trick. That's the real trick.
Yeah, and like I said, it really helps. I think the CAD services. Listen, not every company on the planet can afford a Tony Gaffney. You know what I mean? Full time, and we're not always that easy to find, right? They said that we all started being that guy. Everybody wants the CAD guy, the guy who knows all the answers, who can do everything. He can do the standards. He can make the drawings get out fast. He can make sure everybody's stuff is good. And it's hard to find those guys, and they're not cheap as full-time employees. They're guys with a lot of experience, and they require a lot in order to come work for you. And dealing with a consultant like Pinnacle, right? They get you. So they said when you're in the door, you can help them with, you have a problem? I can fix that. Oh, that system's not working? Here's why. Oh, you need some tweaking of the standards? I got you. It definitely gives a whole lot more people that super CAD user that they're really looking to find that they haven't been able to find for the last 10 years. So I think there's a huge benefit there too.
Yeah, and going back to the evil decades word, because we've been doing it for so long, Jim, you can attest to this as well. Going back in the early days, it was you said it earlier, it's CAD drafting. But now, and I'll put this question to you, like drafting's kind of it's kind of gone away. Now it's all design. And I'm on civil, so I'm doing civil 3D. That's a design program. And the concept of drafting, it's not really what we knew and called drafting isn't really there. And what I think I'm starting to see now lately is that you have this generation of students, the kids, as I call them, coming up. Listen, they never, ever were on a board. You know, you and I were on a board at some point in time. So they never knew how to draw. And it's one thing you learn how to draw. Then you learn how to draw in CAD. But now CAD has moved up a generation where it's not even drawing in CAD. Now we're designing. And we have this generation of kids coming up who don't even know how to draw. So now they're trying to produce drawings without really knowing what a drawing
right.
is
They don't know what the final end product is supposed to be. And listen, I agree with you. That's absolutely the way that the world has gone. And I think it's a good thing, right? In essence, we've kind of cut out a lot of the middleman, you know, in that it used to be, you know, the engineer would take a pen and paper and he would sketch out a design and he would hand it to the drafts person who would clean it up and present it. You know, there was like this disconnect. There were two different people, one who understood what it said, one who made it look good, you know, and now we've kind of merged those together. But I think you're absolutely right that there's still a little bit of work to be done in there, in that we've lost that last person, you know, the last hands on it to make it look professional, to make sure it's readable and understandable and buildable and can, you know, the person who presents that final output so that thing can actually be worked with.
Yes. Yeah. And the analogy I always give, because, you know, my training in classes, I have, you know, the students all over the map. I get, you know, engineering students, young kids who don't know how to draw. And then I'll have the old architect who's like, okay, I got to learn AutoCAD. I've held off this long. I'm going to come into class and I'm going to learn AutoCAD. Well, it's the classic situation. I'm sure you've seen it yourself. Our old guy takes forever to get the drawing done. The young kid bangs it out, but the older guy, his stuff looks so much better because he knows what it's supposed to look like. And if we can find a way to take his knowledge and the young kid's synapses and put those two together, then we got it. And my answer to that is internships, you know, but that's a paradigm that's been there, not just recently, that's been there for quite a while.
Yeah. Yep, no doubt. So, all right, so it kind of, you know, it does underscore, I think, and that's where, you know, a guy like you comes in. You know what I mean? Where, right. You know, you've got both ends. And that's why I said, that's where, you know, it gives you an in-house mentor almost, right? Somebody that you can bring in who is a much higher level designer with an extensive drafting and output understanding, you know, who can actually mentor those younger guys who have the synapses, who know the technology, and be like, great, dude, you're good. I can help you get through. I can show you how to be even faster. But you still have to make sure that the output is in this format, looks this way. Otherwise, it can't be done, right? So, exactly. Yeah, I think that's hugely important. So kind of...
Yeah, you hit nail on the head with that. I mean, a good portion of the day is you know, showing people, you know, how they, you know, listen, you want it to look like this. You want to go this way with it because this is what the engineer is going to want to see. This is what's going to make sense. And it's just fascinating to me that I just seeing this generation of kids coming up who they have no clue of that because they never really ever did any just straight up drafting like we did coming up.
Yeah, because like you said, most of them are coming, you know, right out of college as engineers, and they're like, okay, here's how you do basic CAD. All right, you can just model this and model that, and then the computer will give you all the output. Well, computers aren't magic bullets.
You just punch it in, and then it just punches out all the stuff. You know, it's the CAD does it. It's going to do it. The program does it.
Yeah. It's like a magic wand. You just wave CAD at something, and it's good. Isn't that the way this all goes?
Yeah. So why do you guys think that they don't teach the core foundation of drafting in schools?
Yeah, that is a great question, and I have never found a good answer. Maybe Tony's got a good answer because that one boggles my mind.
It depends on the school. I've found some are better at it than others, but I don't think they value it in their curriculum. And what I've found is that, you know, back again, decades, there were more, you know, voc tech type of schools where you would go and they would have a drafting program where you would spend some time on the board and then they would move you to the CAD. And that doesn't exist anymore, as far as I can see. You know, the kids, the engineering students, they go into engineering school and they're learning theory, and then they come out and they get into the firm and It's classic. The engineers look at it and go, everything you learn, forget it. This is how we're doing it. And I'm just amazed how they don't teach the software. And a lot of times I'm sitting with them, teaching them the software on the job, which is fine. That's part of my job. But I'm just always amazed by that they didn't, they'll have a class for a semester, guys. And you know what happens? The professor throws the book at them, go, all right, here's the CAD book. Here's the CAD lab, projects due at the end of the semester. And they're not really given a lot of direction. And I've sat with fresh new engineering students for a day to go over things, and they come out saying, I've learned more about CAD in one day than I did it 4 years in school.
And I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's a mystery to me. That's one of the reasons I developed the Civil 3D class at CCM, just to help these kids out, because you have to know this program if you're going to go work in that field. And as soon as you get into work, you're going to sit down, and the engineer is going to be like, okay, here's the work. Productivity, let's go. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And you can't sit there scratching your head saying, what's an alignment? What's a profile?
And I think, part of it is like you said, right? They teach some schools, and you're absolutely right. There are schools who it's not part of their engineering design program at all. They don't touch on CAD, which is in this day and age ridiculous. But I think that there's still a shortcoming in that. Even the ones that do, they teach CAD as a functional process. In other words, you draw a line, connect line, done. And there's more to it than that. I think, and where it really confuses me, and I don't understand why, is in the architectural field in particular. Listen, we're both civil guys, right? We know civil engineers put words on page, build it, push dirt, move on. They are as basic gets. They don't want to play with fancy output. Architects aren't like that, right? In an architectural program, students they're required to take art classes and hand lettering classes and visualization classes and graphics classes. None of them focus on CAD output. It's like, hey, great, it's great. You're telling them how to do renderings and presentations, which are important. I get it. But the day-to-day operational output, they completely ignore. There is a skill set. Listen, like you said, you and I both started on the board, and I used to work with some old school hand drafters. These are guys who were in their 70s when I was, 18. What they turned out by hand as construction documents was artwork.
Oh my God, Jim. No, I've had old guys, architects, and they come in with stuff they drew by hand, and can I have that? Please, can I have that? It's a work of art, and I use it in the classes to show people, look, this is what we used to do. And some of it is just fantastic what these guys can do with the pencil. It's gone. It's a lost art. It's terrible because some of it's just nice.
It's absolutely amazing to see. And I also think that there's, because there's some people out there are sure listening, well, it's nice, but I ain't got time. I'm not paying somebody for artwork. I need things done. And you're right. I get that. But it was not only artwork, it was incredibly efficient. Everything you needed to construct was right there, neatly, intelligently, cleanly laid out and organized. It was just a better product. And I think that we are definitely missing on that in the CAD world today.
Yeah, no, you make a really good point with with today's, architecture. Let's stay with what you're talking about. Well, what's big now? Revit. Revit's not a 2D program, but a lot of architectural plans are what? They're 2D. It's still a piece of paper. And sometimes Autodesk, sorry, but sometimes the 2D is all we need, and that's what gets the job done. And all the fancy bells and whistles with your 3D, that's great, but what we need in the finished product that these people need is straight up a 2D drafting. And that is something that I think needs to not be overlooked.
No, it can't. It's vital. Right? Until the day comes, right? Because at the end of the day, to build it in the field, whether it's a civil job or an architectural job or anything, you're going to have pieces of paper. Until Rocco and I have had this conversation a lot, right? So the dream is when they come up with the 36 by 48 flat monitor that you can roll up and stick in the back of your truck and not have it be destroyed in the rain, then maybe we'll go entirely digital and we can use the 3D models. And until then, pieces of paper. So 2D is still vital. So, all right.
Awesome.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice though? I'm telling you, man, the guys who invent that are going to own the world. So Google's on it already, I'm sure. So, all All right, so yeah, like we said, there are lots of kind of go back here onto our main topic. There are a lot of services out there, and then plenty of places to find them on the web. But I also think a big thing, Tony, is when you're looking for someone like Pinnacle or whoever it is, you got to find someone who understands the type of design work that you do. You know what I mean? You're not going to throw an architectural guy on a civil job. I mean, like I said, a guy like you with decades of experience, you've got a very broad base of knowledge. Not always the case, right? So I think you got to find a reliable company with solid experience in your particular field. All right. So like I said, Tony, as you said, how do you show folks that you are the right contractor for their type of work, right? How do you convince them that you're going to get the product needed at a fair price and in a reasonable amount of time when they've never worked with you before? And I know we talked a little bit about this already, but I just want to, convincing them that, hey, you got a civil job or an environmental job, I'm the guy. I'm the right guy.
Well, we have, we're a small firm ourselves, so we have a handful of people, and some people are better suited to architecture, so we'll send that person to the architectural client, and then some people are better to civil, which is me, so I'll be going to the civil client. So we kind of spread it out that way. So we play to the strengths of the staff, and I have to admit, just having been in it forever and worked in different fields, it's pretty much as soon as you get in, you start to get an idea of what they want things to look like and how they want things to go. Being very, efficient at the software also helps out as far as that's concerned. So, a big part of it is listening to the client, and this is also part of it, because I'm coming in to help. I have no agenda. I'm not your employee. So I'm listening to you, and I want to do things the way you want them to be done, because that's the job. Whereas an employee situation, it might be a little bit different. As an example, you might have one employee moving from one firm to another firm. Well, that's not the way we did it at my firm. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. That's an issue. It doesn't happen with us in contract. We're here. It's your bus. We're helping you get where you need to go. We're not going to fight you on it. Even if I don't think what you want to do is the way to go, but hey, it's your show. We're going to work with you. You're not going to get any pushback.
Yeah, you're providing a service as opposed to, people who are in-house are sometimes angling for promotions, or they want the recognition, or they're trying to, undercut the guy who they think shouldn't be their boss. There's all kinds of internal politics when you're dealing with people.
Oh, none of that. Yeah, all that is gone. And that's a positive. It's just like, hey, we're here. Let's get to work. We can't waste any time. We're not going to sit there on the internet and, go to our fantasy league. It doesn't happen. It can't happen. We're here. Every minute counts. The clock is ticking. Let's just get to work, because the sooner we can help you out and get stuff done, the better it is for you, the better it is for us.
Yeah, because you can move on to other jobs too, right? You got other clients. That's it. And I think that's the part that people sometimes get scared about. Like, oh, this guy's just going to drag out the job and gouge me. Man, listen, guys like Tony, I've worked with Tony in the past, right? We've worked clients together. And he gets on a job, he hits the job, and he wants to get your work done as quickly as he can, because he's got 3 other clients who are like, look, I need you here tomorrow morning. And he's like, yeah, no problem, So yeah, they're not looking to drag that out on you. They were looking to get in, get out, get the job done as quickly and as efficiently as they can, so they leave you with a great product, so you bring them back for the next project. That's the mindset. So Rocco, you've been sitting quietly for a while. So let's. What do you think? Right? Do you think? And we talked a little bit about the digital change that we've seen. Do you think that people are more likely nowadays? Do you think it's easier to bring people like Tony on? Do you think it's easier now to land work for this type of contracting with our client base?
Yeah, I think in some ways it is easier. I mean, look, like us, we're based in New Jersey. Pinnacle's based in New Jersey. I mean, with the technology, you can, Tony can work with a customer in California. So the technology usage deployment has only made things easier for sure. But a big thing is building that relationship, working with people that you're comfortable with, working with people that and that you can trust. And it takes a while to get there. It's not one of those things where you just Google somebody and let me just try working with them, and you can, but it means a lot when you have built a relationship with a firm like Pinnacle. That's for sure.
No doubt. And I think that's true of any industry. I mean, we do that too, on the tech and the consulting, the work that we do. You get repeat clients. You get people who are just like, hey, you did a great job. We just want to work with you. And that's the ideal situation for any business to be in. So, all right. So Tony, let's take a couple of minutes here and let's get into the actual practical process, right? So, you landed the client, right? We talked about how to get the client. So you landed the client. He's got a job. What's the process, right? How are you going to price out a project, and what tools or what processes do people need to have in place, right, in order to work back and forth and to ensure that you're meeting the client's needs?
Well, pricing wise, it's usually we come with a contract, and it's most cases we agree to the hourly rate is usually how it's done. That it varies. Sometimes though it's just a project and they want to have an overhead number, a final number, and so you go back and forth on that. So that number will vary. Coming into the job, you come to the office, or now I guess remotely. You need to. It's best most situations if you can. The client will set you up as a user on their network so that you can, access their network and their files, and it's their stuff, it's their work. It just works out better that way, especially, as you know, from AutoCAD with, X references and things of that nature. So if that can be done, that's great. So in essence, we just become another node. We become like another employee, really. Much less overhead, but we're just like another employee. And then once the working mechanism, the working world, the engineers know, okay, this guy's coming in, give him your work. So they start giving you the work. It could be red lines. It could be, can you help me with this, design of a surface, or we're doing some pipe network stuff here in Civil 3D. Can you help us put these pipes together? And a lot of it is, all right, I'll start working and do what you need and then give it back to you and you check it. And listen, I'm not an engineer, so I tell them straight up, I can lay out the pipes, but don't get on my case if the water flows uphill. You're gonna have to check it, but I can do all the editing and, manage the CAD and manage the program, manage the files for you. And then once you start working with them and you start to get comfortable with each other, then it just falls into place and you really do become like another employee there. And you just start, the work just goes like anything else.
So actually, yeah, I was a little bit surprised by your answer. I kind of expected you to tell me that you were, at least at first, when you're first starting with people, you were doing kind of fixed fee or price not to exceed kind of structures. So you're doing most of it, and I can see, like you said, once somebody knows you and they trust you, they know your work ethic. Definitely hourly seems to be the most effective thing. But just like, look, we'll just feed you work till the work is done, and we'll pay you whatever the hours are. But even with that, right? How do you handle that? I mean, especially when you're not on site. Do you have, how do you show people that you're being effective and working during those hours, or is it just purely a trust thing? I mean, do you have like work time tracking tools or regular meetings, or just let the work speak for itself?
No, Jim, strictly it's productivity. Someone throws something at you, and if you throw it back at them quick and it's done. And actually, I've found what's the best is not, I'm not talking about do it really quick. Quality. If you can get it back to them in a timely manner that is done, in such a way that, oh my God, I have only a few minor revisions. This is great. Here's the fine, because there's always revisions. Here's the revision. So if I can get it back to the client and they come back at me with maybe 2 or 3 rounds of revisions, that's it. That sells it. That's it's great. You're done. You've done the work. You've sold yourself. They're happy because they got the thing done quickly and they got it done efficiently, and that's it. That's the best selling point. That cements everything. So it's the quicker you can get a quality production back to them, that answers all the questions. This guy we hired, man, these guys come in and they just knocked it out of the park.
Right. It sounds so simple, isn't it?
I know it sounds almost too simple.
Yeah, but that's how the world should work, and I don't know why it doesn't. Right, but it just seems to me, and if whatever the thing is you're doing, I don't care if you're fixing TVs or cars or you're a drafting consultant, do a good job, do it in a timely manner. And that's all anybody is interested in. It's like, look, you did what you said you were going to do, and the time you said you were going to do it. We're happy. It's a pretty simple equation.
No, you hit the nail on the head. Think about it. Your analogy was great. You have an electrician come over to fix something in the house. He comes in and does a good job and it efficiently, and and all right, maybe he's going to charge a little more. We all know it. If this guy's going to come in and get it done quickly and done it right and quality, I will pay extra for the quality.
Right, exactly. Right. Other than, and like I said, and I think that's where I think a lot of things that derail. To go back to what we were saying earlier, where they're going to those digital sweatshops. Where things are, we can turn your drafting around in 2 hours, and people are like, oh, 2 hours, that's great. Yeah, they did it in 2 hours, and then you had to spend 30 hours fixing it. Versus, someone like you would say, hey.
Yeah, you hear it all the time. Oh, they're quick, but they're not very accurate.
I can have an electrician come in and fix my light in 7 minutes, but if the light only works 1 hour a day, what did I really gain? It's you got to kind of balance that. So, all right. So, Tony, one last question before we kind of wrap it up here. So, from this conversation, right, what's the big thing that you'd like the listeners to kind of take away from today? What misconception or fear or process do you want them to kind of put aside that gets in the way of effectively using services like Pinnacle?
Well, I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's just you got to recognize the value of it. Knowing that it's, I would say, talk to your end users, because they'll show you from a ground, like where the rubber hits the road. They're going to show you where the value is. Don't look at it as just a number on a spreadsheet. It's like, here's another expense. Go and look and see what, a service like ours is doing for you. And you might be surprised. I remember, this goes years back. I was helping out a client, and, the owner was getting, because I was there, they had nothing, Jim. They were switching over to Civil 3D. They had nothing. I had to build everything for them. You know what I'm talking about. So I was there for at least a month. I think it was longer, just because we were doing so much stuff. And the owner was getting a little, all right, why is this guy still here? Because he's looking at me and he's seeing dollar signs float out the window. And the CAD person, I was the lead CAD guy of the company, was there, and he goes, "That guy's worth his weight in gold. What are you, crazy? We're doing so much." And so that if we can get the clients to see that's what's key about using this kind of service.
Yeah, that's it. People need to start looking at it, and like I said earlier, Dre, you got to look at the ROI. What's the return on investment? Yes, there's a cost. But you're laying out a cost because it's going to generate substantially more profit.
Yep. And go back to your analogy with the electrician. You're going to pay more for a good plumber. You're going to pay more for a good electrician,
Yeah, but it's going to work.
You don't balk at that cost.
Yeah, exactly. And you keep that kind of mindset, and you should be good. And this is a great system. It works out well for people, particularly in the modern digital age. So, all right. So I think with that, we can wrap this up by saying that, CAD drafting services are, back in vogue. They're much more reliable. And with the new digital environment, they may be your design firm's new best friend. All right. So Think about that. So I want to thank Tony for being with us today. I appreciate you being here, Tony. And I really hope that you come back again. It was a great conversation
I'll
today.
Come back. Yeah, come on, you guys. I'll come back, definitely.
It's good. This is actually a much longer podcast than we usually do. Like I said, you love it when you get someone I can just kind of ramble on with.
Well, it's good. I haven't talked to you guys in a long time, so it's good to catch up.
Good deal. All right, Rocco, anything you want to throw in before we bounce out of here?
No. Thanks, Tony. Thanks for your time, buddy.
All right, Rocco, good to hear from you.
Excellent, folks. All right, everybody, we are out, and we will catch you on the next episode of the Cattle Call Podcast. Later. All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.